Gibraltar released this vessel very much against the US's wishes. How's this going to impact Trump's hardline approach to Iran?
Put another way, how much of a setback is this to Donald Trump's hardline approach to Iran, to say the least? Setback, but we have to continue watching this space here. Why? Because A, the ship hasn't sailed yet. Yes, it's been released, but it actually hasn't started moving across those waters. It could yet still be detained, pending perhaps the outcome, the vicissitudes, as you say, of this U.S. legal bid, a bid by Donald Trump's Justice Department to do what Gibraltar says is no longer legally tenable, and that is continue to detain this ship and its crew, as we just heard. Look, this is all part of a broader but relatively simple narrative. I usually don't like to make things oversimplistic, but in the Iran case with Donald Trump, it's relatively simple. Since Donald Trump unilaterally withdrew from the 2015 Iran nuclear accord, which offered Iran trade in exchange for curbing its nuclear arms program. And since Donald Trump has reimposed very crippling sanctions on Iran, we have had basically back and forth jabbing, tit for tats between Iran and the West, but notably and the U.S. of Donald Trump, which has escalated. We use the word all the time, but let's use it again because it's very applicable. Escalated to a razor's edge, the tensions in the Persian Gulf. This is all part of that narrative. These tankers have become pawns in this U.S. versus Iran, U.S. under Trump, standoff with Iran. And the tanker that was seized by Gibraltar and then the British flag tanker that was shortly thereafter seized by Iran in the Strait of Hormuz, both of them are pawns. And will there be a deal? Perhaps. But let's not kid ourselves here. It's a temporary setback for the Trump administration, but the rest of the world has a real uphill battle in opposing the will of Donald Trump. If he wants to escalate things further with Iran, Europe, for all of its perhaps desire and determination to want to keep this nuclear deal alive, to want to try to de-escalate, it might not be able to do so if Donald Trump is determined enough.
Now, Gibraltar is, of course, a British territory. Where does all this leave Britain regarding its policy towards Tehran, possibly stuck between the USA on one side and Europe on the other?
Yeah, I'll just take away, you're right on everything. I'll just take the word possibly out of what you just said. Boris Johnson, the new prime minister, is a man who was very eagerly, enthusiastically endorsed by Donald Trump. He's been called Britain's Donald Trump. Okay, he's not a carbon copy of Trump, but pretty close in the view of many of his critics in Britain, and even not many of his critics. Those who support him see some similarities. The thing is, he is absolutely scared to death at a time where everything in his fate perhaps rides on the outcome of his Brexit plans. And those plans right now seem to be hurtling towards the prospect, more likely every day, of a no deal crashing out. He is more than ever dependent and reliant on Donald Trump to save Britain in a post-Brexit age, i.e. by getting a favorable trade deal. Putting it simply, let's do that. Boiling it down to the simplistics again, he needs to remain on Donald Trump's side. And for now, that means hewing more closely to Donald Trump and his administration's hardline approach, the so-called applying maximum pressure approach to Iran, than the European approach. Officially, Britain still says it's with the Europeans in wanting to salvage the Iran nuclear deal. But the flip side of that coin is, as much as they say they're still with the Europeans, the reality is that Britain last month joined a U.S.-led mission to protect ships in the Gulf, a mission seen as very belligerent and provocative, to say the least, a mission that other European countries refused to join. And Britain now is showing signs of also, if not doing Donald Trump's bidding, at least being very open to hewing very closely to Donald Trump's approach. So, again, I say it a lot, watch this space. But it will be very interesting to see if Boris Johnson can be persuaded one way or the other, more towards the European camp or more towards the Trump camp.
Doug Herbert, our international